Story continued from Thaddeus and Tarquinus playlist. The Measuring. Tomorrow. I give my judgment tomorrow. But it is no mercy to have this delay. The knowledge of my decision hangs around my neck with all the weight of a battle barge. Thaddeus was not overstating or exaggerating when he dubbed our calling the loneliest road. For in all the galaxy, there are few with our power. We hold the Emperor's bull, his writ, his seal. We can requisition or commandeer anything from anyone at any time. We are inquisitors. Even planetary governors and high nobility sweat in our presence alone. Yet the weight of it all, the crushing, suffocating burden of knowledge, of history, of the basic understanding of what is actually out there, what we face, what we are forced to do, the blood on our hands. And tomorrow, it will not be on the order of my Thaddeus, my superior. It will be entirely on my say-so. It will all be on my hands. An exquisite torture arranged by an Eldar. They wish to test my limits, what they call a measuring. If I pass, the Farseer will train me in the psychic arts. Unheard of, I am told. But if I do not hit the passing mark, I am too powerful to be allowed to live. And make no mistake, he could do it, this Tyranid of Craftworld Annwn. He is easily, and by quite some margin, the most potent being on the ship. Perhaps not the most dangerous, perhaps, but certainly the most mighty. Even should he wish it, I doubt even Thaddeus and his entire entourage, my friends, could stop the Eldar. Yet the being with the most chance of doing this is in my entourage. So strange to even form that sentence, let alone speak it out loud. My entourage. He is my first, a solitaire. Cursed to be beholden to Slaanesh at the end of his days. An Eldar. He serves me for the time being. A high bar to match up to. No pressure, eh? But then, I have been trained for this all of my adult life, since my world and everything, everyone on it, was destroyed by the Neverborn, the demons. I stand to inherit the mantle of the Thaddeus, the wisdom, a tradition, a line of inquisitors that stretches back to near the beginning of the Ordos, the great organizations 3. Ordo Hereticus, they hunt the traitor, the witch, the subversives. Ordo Xenos, who would have a fit if they knew who we were fraternizing with right now. For they hunt down the alien, the Xenos. And of course, my own order, the Ordo Malleus. We are the enemies of the demons, the unclean. A role that is now a crusade for me. Vengeance. I will destroy the powers of chaos wherever I find them. It is now my burning desire. The reason I spring out of bed every single morning, no matter the events of the day before. I bound from my covers. I shed my calmed mind in a single breath, and I become what I need to be. And I am lusty to get about it. I will confound and counter, then eventually bring to brook all of them, the dark gods and all who aid them. And thus, I have been tasked to put to the question, the last of my people. A soul ship that escaped the destruction of my world, the horror that was unleashed. They jumped erratically, then have been going for years, guided to unpopulated worlds where they could resupply, guided to a long march journey that takes them where the powers of evil wish them to be. Or such as a song sung by the Eldar Farseer, and there are too many coincidences to ignore. It certainly looks like he is right. And then, of course, I found the proof. The terrible reality of the situation with which I was faced. These last few days, I've researched and read by night, burnt and bullied through boundaries and brains throughout the day. I have been indefatigable. But finally, I have come to my conclusion. Tomorrow will be hard, and I would have it no other way. I am steel, but I must soon be forged further. I will need be hammered into ceramite and then auramite. I must be the perfect weapon to prosecute the most terrible war. So I now welcome the hardships. I now welcome the test. It forces me faster on my road. These are the blows that will shape my burning soul, make me into the man I need to be. The Thaddeus, the scourge of the warped ones, the wisdom. We stand alone in my chambers, spacious for a vessel of this size, but then it is my ship. Hence, I gain the best quarters. Just the two of us, late in the night. Me and the Farseer, Tyranid, the Heart of Fire, of the craft world Annwn. He is an ally so old, he is considered above suspicion. He had better be, or I am utterly buggered. He stands tall, at his full height. He is nearer to Barbon's stature than my own. His hand is placed on my armor. He is communing with that which is inside. No, it's not me. I stand some distance away, making sure not to interrupt or distract him. His eyes are alight with psychic fire, as is so often the case when they touch the warp. Yet, he is able to perform this task with such ease. He looks at me now. His task is simple, but will take time. He is obviously flagging that we should banter while he performs this Erskine duty, and so I begin. If the others knew what we are doing, I'd be crispy fried in a minute. Others? Says the Eldar. Ordo Xenos, Ordo Hereticus, some of my own order even. We have maintained this pact for centuries, millennia, from almost the beginning of your Imperium. I was a child when I first heard of what had been bequeathed upon your line. I was insulted at the time. We gave your kind the greatest of all gifts possible from an Eldar craft world. We gave you our future. But then, without you, there would be none. Now I see that this is exactly as it should be. You gave us back our home, saved our lives, saved our souls. Without your predecessor, we would not exist at all. But we did not ever dream that your kind would be able to maintain such an agreement, such an alliance. Your kind see us all as the same, we Eldari. You see the predations of the Eladrith and Nis, those of Cormorah. You see the dances of Segora, whose jibes and jests many do not survive. Yet you see us all as one. So to your kind, we are inconstant, fickle, cruel, and untrustworthy. Horrors all. This ignores the nuances. And before I donned the Farseer's mask, I lost nuance as well. About your kind. You, Monkey. I saw you all as one. But now I know better. I would never treat with an Astartes or a Sororitas, for that would mean certain death for me or them. I would never treat even with an Inquisitor of the Ordo Xenos. But I treat with you, Ordo Malleus, but also one of the traditions. We always thought that your tenuous line would be extinguished by the enemy, or your own kind, long centuries ago. Or that one amongst you would arise that would spit in our faces, ignore the pact and the fruits you have gained thereof. Yet of all your kind, all even of the traditions, it is your line, the Thaddeus, who has been the most constant. Even in our dealings with each other, the Thaddeus and our craft world, your input has aided us more than just the once when the gift was given, but since, you have been ever constant, a shining light in a world of darkness. And as the Rana Dandra approaches, we know, I know, that yours will be a powerful force for good, a much-needed one. But our love of your line cannot distract us from the reality of Tarquinus. Yet I will assume that you have trained him to be able to match this measuring. I just hope the boy is everything you hope him to be. I doubt he will match up to you, old friend. Power or not, you are the greatest of your number, and you always will be, even if it is just to me. Will you protect him? Will you guide him when I am gone? Gone? You will never be fully gone, my friend. That is the price. Aye, but he may not listen to me then. What if I am drowned? What if he loses it? Will you promise me you will help him, if he will accept it? If he is everything you think he is, why would I even need to? He will be powerful, Thaddeus. He already is. But if he passes the measuring, if he is trained by a high Farseer of my kind, by me, he will not require anything from anyone ever again. Power, ability, wisdom, he may well have it all, but he will not have the experience, may not have the wherewithal to make a way forward every time. Our alliances with the Thaddeus. I have been fortunate that the choices your predecessors have made have been universally good ones. But our alliance stands. I will be there for him, if that is what is required. I can only hope that the webway gate opens in both directions. Oh, have no worry concerning that. He's a plucky thing, headstrong sometimes, but I have never doubted his soul. He will be there for you when or if you require it. The gates will indeed open both ways, my friend. Strange that we use that word. So many do with you. I wonder, Thaddeus, if you have used this shield of yours for so long. Why? You could achieve all that you do through force of will and diktat. You have the bull, the seal of your emperor. Yet, you always seek to forge ties with others that go so much further than hierarchy and duty. Are you always to be the beaten understudy? Your master was not kind to you. We both know I witnessed it, and we both remember it all too well. He was a psyker. I am not. So you decided to apologize your way across the galaxy for all eternity. To live in his shadow forever? Oh no. We had it out many, many moons ago. To be expected. So why that act? What if it is not an act? Have you ever considered that, my friend? Of course. But you are a manipulator. You are aware of that, at the very least. That man, that Black Templar, he would follow you into hell. Oh, he has, frequently. He made an oath. He made an oath to me. His oath is not what keeps him at your side, nor what permits you to needle him so much. We've been through a lot. The little telekinetic, the twins, the sniper, even the Juquero, and so many others over the years. I still mourn the twins. They were entertaining, their thoughts so erratic. Yet the duality like a choir. They too followed you into hell, and like so many, they have passed, burnt up in your endless, unwinnable war. And that is the difference between our races, if I can be so bold. You lot have been beaten down. Many races have. Humanity was before the rise of the Emperor. The difference between us is simple and stark. You stayed down. Did I hit a nerve, Thaddeus? You attempt to goad me so this discourse ends. Pitifully obvious. So, when each of your attendants, your entourage, have seen you feed their friends into the fires, have ordered executions, have entreated them to die for you, for a cause that is not their own. My cause is the same as every human's. We stand and fall together. My fight is their fight. I merely show them the way. I understand. But do they? I doubt it. No matter what horrors you show them, Thaddeus, no matter how you throw up argumentative shimmer shields, you must know deep down, they do it for you. Not the Emperor, not the war, not freedom or even their own futures. They do it for you. Yes, I know. And you generate this loyalty in them in such a calculated way. Truly, you are as capricious and cruel as the enemy. You hit me with words hard as Auramite, Farseer. Ah, it is Farseer now, not friend. If you were not my friend, I would not be listening at all. Finish your lesson to me, for you are as able a spider as I. You see the future, you know its course, or at least millions of potentials that are likely. So you come for not only our pact, not just to squash the threat, nor to test the boy. You come to teach me a final lesson as well. The Eldar nods, and a wry smile appears on his face. Ah, two old warriors trade truths at last, old friend. So, let us be about it. You had best teach the boy how you do what you do, to create the glamours of the hearts of all around him. But again, I ask thee why. Why the pantomime? Why the friendship? I try to surround myself with emotionally intelligent people where I can. Well, for Imperial stormtroopers at any rate. You work with what you can find, eh? Tarquinus already knows the riddle of Ceramite, as my master once put it. But then, my master didn't really understand it. Not deep down. He'd pontificate, the flesh and soul are stronger. Look at what they can achieve. But it is as brittle in other ways. Wet cold steel will succumb to the elements. So too do most souls. But those that do not, those that are forged over time, they are indestructible, prime movers, but only for a time. So I will use mine wisely. He would say, do not bother to build bridges that will inevitably fall into the river of time. Be efficient if you have the strength. But this, in my mind, was pure folly. Chain a man to a wall, he will dig it out, or pull it down. Chain a man's heart, and he will place himself in front of you, walk into the fires if need be. And he will do it with a stern resolve that shines his best self out into the universe. For he will be helping, be useful, be sacrificing himself for his friends, the ones he loves. I am hard enough to know how to capture them, hard enough to watch them die, but I am also strong enough to mourn them when they are gone, to respect them while they live. By forming a community, we are chained to each other. But of course, I always hold the key to my lock. They do not. And the difference between a man of honour and a man in love? 4 more days, or a grave, depending on the skill of the torturer. Most often, it will be the grave. A man will defend secrets, buy time, hold back key information, out of duty. But stronger by far is the loyalty of chosen family, of true friendship. Lover, squad, team, friends, it is all the same. It is tribe. A servant will do as instructed, but no more. A true ally will act on your behalf before you are even aware of the need. And most importantly, I do make true friendship with my entourage. It's not a pantomime. No, I will never hesitate to sacrifice what many would call a pawn. No, I will not put any of their lives above mine or the mission, ever. But I do love them, you know. I chose my entourage carefully. I make sure I can use them, can understand them, can befriend them. And if needs be, I make sure I have just enough distance to sacrifice them for the war. Ah, but the boy breaks these rules you have set down for yourself. You never had a lasting lover, did you, Thaddeus? I have loved. Of course you have. But you have never sown your seed, have you? You have never known the bliss until now. Your point? I see it when you look at him, see it when you explain, see it when you both laugh. This boy, he is not just your protégé. He is not just your successor, is he? Admit it. To yourself, if not to me. You will need to do this, Thaddeus. For otherwise your vision will not be in keeping with your role. Balance. Equilibrium. The wisdom. You see, this is how I know he will be better than me. Because he can already do it. He can forge the bonds he will need, no matter how that they will always, inevitably, be one-sided. From them to him. He has won over Ursula, Devrin, Louis, even Barbon. And that was no small feat, I can assure you. You forget his most impressive conquest. Yourself. The boy wraps you around his fingers, I believe is your saying. You must be prepared to lose him, as any of your other many trainees. The time approaches. You know it better than even I. I do not have time to search for another. I will never meet his kind again. He must be the wisdom. He must. Then finally, old friend, you have found your Achilles' heel. Pray it never arises. Indeed, I do. Every day, every night, I pray for guidance from he who sits on the throne of terror. Every day I ask him, I implore him. Your faith is so confusing to me. You know he is a man, was always a man. Your own words. Aye, it is confusing, I grant you. Illogical, one might say. But then, logic is hardly a measuring rod an Eldar can claim. Don't make me name the mistake your kind created. But before you demur, in mock affront, cut to the quick. What lesson am I to be taught this time? Is it really worth giving me so many more morsels when my chewing days are almost over? If I told you that, there would be no point in being here at all. You aren't concerned about him, our quarry, are you? Quite the opposite, Thaddeus. Quite the opposite. I am here for a myriad of reasons, and not all of them for me or thee. Sometimes one must stand in the right position to see the tapestry unfold. So you can control it? So I can guide it. Being pugnacious about this will avail you naught. We both know it is required. The Ranadandra approaches, if we are not already in its full throes. We must remove this particular piece from the board, this threat from the past, or he will be a mighty player of the future. Perhaps your race will end in this battle of your prophecy, but do not confuse yourself with the galaxy. You simply aren't that important. None of us are. But on this, we can all agree. This threat must be removed immediately. We've hunted him for so long. We must be careful. So very careful. He could vanish again in an instant. Your allies are in position. Nearly. We need to gather more forces, but we are nearly there. Let us hope the boy's performance improves. What do you mean? He's doing really well. Not well enough. The Farseer then ends his commune with my power armor in the corner and turns to me with a smile on his lips. As always, it is stable. We build things to last. The surrounding armor, though, honestly, Thaddeus, we can remove the lattice and embed it into another new set. Surely there must be something better by now. Honestly, I can't keep explaining this. Older is better. Trust me, I had to wear what Tarquinus is wearing now, and my armor is so much better than his. Even before your assistance. We fell from grace. You were robbed of it. Yet I always hoped you Monkey would rise again, to be what you used to be. This is, well, as we are old friends, I have to say it's quite pathetic. Let's just call it a classic and leave it there, shall we? It still works. It will for millennia, Thaddeus. Then why aren't things going as usual? That is simple. They know everything you know. Things are quieter because it is your time, Thaddeus. It is your time. Well, consider my debt paid in full. I bow. At that, the Eldar bowed back and glared out of my apartment. A door opened on the opposite side, and out came a huge man whose face I knew as well, nay, better than my own. It is intact, Barbon, old chum. I'll never condone this fraternization with the enemy, you know that. But I am relieved at the news, on your behalf, of course. Of course. So, you know what is at stake, what to do, just in case. Stop clucking. I've known as long as you have. Or is your mind so addled with decrepitude that you are forgetting things now, Thaddeus? No, Barbon, no. We both know. I cannot forget anything. It can be a heavy weight. As it was always meant to be. Arguably, it is your greatest strength. I break my morning fast with protein and recaf. I will need to be sharp today, in every meaning of the word. I had eaten alone, but then Louis waddled in. He grabs my arm and walks me by the hand, and it is definitely Louis walking me, no matter what others might be seeing. He leads me through the ship, to his area. It would force a tech priest into a coma. So much built, so many projects. So deeply alien. From one side, you could not understand what was on display. But when I walked around some, from the right angle, they were beautiful and strange. But their use was obvious. And then he continued me round, and there they were, all of them. Thaddeus, Barbon, Devrin, Ursula, Louis. Well, it's time, says Thaddeus. You gained the rank, but we were pressed to be off. So we missed out one very important element. I look on dumbfounded, and Barbon takes a half step forward. The bequeathing of the trappings, the arming of the weapon of the Emperor himself. Holy is his name. Don't worry, the weapon's you, and this is the Prezi segment of the proceedings. I beam at him, Louis still holding my hand, then walked me up further, up some stairs, to another segment. He had prepared an area that illuminated each gift in mirrors and refracted structures of light. Comically, the structures were like the base, but they were all me, using the object gifted. A sort of condescending yet utterly miraculous guide. I actually snorted and giggled, and Louis just beamed up at me, with that mad, lip-curled back, insanely intense grin of his. He then let me go, and the others followed. Behind him was Thaddeus. I could barely believe my eyes as I approached the first gift. A weapon that few can use, by law. A holy weapon. It could maglock. It had targeting I could link to my eye. It had a smooth grip, perfectly indented to accept my hand. It seemed to hug my power-armoured covered fingers and palms when I took it up. It shone as if touched by the sun. It was polished so skillfully, but with artistry as well. Different strokes and buffs to extenuate the lines, the rounds. The entire thing gleamed. And only one hand in the galaxy could do this. Someone who knew these weapons as an extension of their own being. The hand of an Astartes. Barbon. He had gifted me with a master-crafted bolter. Holy bolter, gifted by one who had been the Emperor's own champion. Bolt-filled mags, made with his very own hand. I could not look at him. I could not. I was hardening, but I was not a completely forged article. Not yet. But from him, of all people, I would never have dreamed. I had to move on. And there the next moment hit me, the next experience, never to be forgotten. For there was a box with lights, a small thing. I would never have identified it myself, but of course, the holographic image above it, well, it said it all. This was an incredibly rare thing, for it was a self-replenishing stim pack, designed to be used within the exact armor mark I wore. Expensive beyond conception. What had he done to get this? I really did not want to know. I will console myself that perhaps he has many from a stash somewhere, because this amazing gift, would increase the healing capabilities of the suit. It would perhaps mean the difference between life and death, that little extra zip when required to get me out of hot water. After all the kickings, noogies, haymakers, headbutts, bat-beatings, jabs, hooks, elbows, knees, and shoeings I'd received, Devlin, the soppy sod, had given me the gift of healing. From Ursula. A gift beyond thoughtful, a challenge, a thing of beauty and terror both. Some might see it as a simple deck of cards, inanimate, unthreatening. But this, it is not. It is a set of the Emperor's tarot, crafted exquisitely, nearly as much so as its giver. Through it, I can touch the very essence of the master of mankind, and implore him to guide my hand through its use, its rare use. These are not toys. They are a weapon of prophecy. And every prediction is a many-edged sword. Only a psyker can power it, can make it more than just cards. Even in the hands of Thaddeus, it would be nothing more than pictures. But in the hands of a psyker, like Ursula and I, it is said that the Emperor himself leads humanity to salvation through these cards that I now own. A gift from one damned soul to another. Thank you, Ursula. The next was clearly from Louis, as I could not understand it at first either. Then again, I looked at the holographic images above it, and my mouth fell open. For there, I saw what it did. When a noise marine nearly lopped my head off, when Thaddeus had to break reality so I could live, he used such an object, such a device. And the image confirmed it, of course. With this ring, for a few times only in all of my existence, or its, I could master time itself. I could stop it. Louis had made this. This is what he had drawn me to really. This was a gift beyond reckoning. Thaddeus, of course, was the last. Barbon now stood next to him, with a long object covered in a black satin covering hanging down from it. He stepped forward and beckoned me to dip my head. I did, and he removed the sigil I had worn since meeting him, my mentor, my master, my friend, the Thaddeus. He then took out another, far more heavy, more ornate, and more powerful thing, my true sigil of inquisitorial power. My very own refraction field, generated from the inquisitorial sigil. He turned to Barbon, who carefully transferred the covered object from his hands to those of Thaddeus. The old man's eyes glistened as he took the next step to me and then whipped off the satin covering with dramatic flair. And he boomed, "Behold, temperance, the blade of the wisdom. 1 I could never wield. 99 have held this sword as a duty. Only a score were able to explore its true depths, its potential, its potence. It is a Sinistrum-class weapon, a focus, a reservoir, and a defense against the Dark Ones. It is temperance. Some say it was forged by the Emperor himself in gratitude to one of his most able aides, whose name is now lost to the sands of time. Its proximity alone burns the unclean, the purity of its maker folded into its every fibre, and it is a force weapon beyond compare. And now, Inquisitor Tarquinus, it is yours. It requires only a pious wielder who can channel the power of the warp along its blade, and through it, you will scour the unclean from the galaxy." And then he passed it to me. I could feel its weight, far less than you would imagine. I looked down the blade. It was perfect in every detail. I could spend a lifetime just admiring it, but my reverie was broken by the chipper words of Thaddeus. "Now that you are properly tooled up, let's go meet that Eldar, shall we? It's showtime." I do not take all of my trappings to this meeting. I will gather them when I require them. It is a habit, a micro-ritual in our group. From Barbon and Devrin to Ursula and even I, we use the prep time to center. I've seen it many times, of course. The really trash-tier banter, as all are really concentrating on themselves, their weapons, the need to change tack, to transform from detectives and humans to weapons of war. Thaddeus and I walk the decks in silence. He knows I am trying to remember all the details of the last few days, the facts that I will need to present perfectly and succinctly. My case will need to be made to the best of my ability. We reach his door, and I am ready. It is indeed, as Thaddeus put it, showtime. The door swings open with that metallic grinding noise, even before we reach for the comms to proclaim our arrival. He knows. Of course he knows. And there he sits, with only 2 chairs. One for him, one for Thaddeus. But he has no liquor in his hand this time. He just pins me with those crystallizing eyes. Thaddeus does as expected. Walks to the chair and sits across from him, facing me also. but I am not intimidated. This is all just part of the play, the dance, the trial. I will allow the Eldar his moment. And he begins. So, we have watched you perform your investigation. We have watched you clumsily burn out the minds of many over the time. We have watched you talk and talk. Now, what is the result of your labours? What does the would-be Inquisitor see? Like it or not, I am an Inquisitor, and I have my conclusion, my judgment. Let's have it then. Don't scrimp. As they say, show your working, old chap. Show your working. The Eldar has thrown more than a few shafts at me in this preamble. I rise above. It is his job to make this measuring as challenging as possible. So I retain my centre, simply to spite him. With each interview, I have been not just surface scanning the candidates. I have been traversing the very depths of their souls. I have asked questions designed to elicit strong reactions. Have pushed the human to get at the thing inside. At first, I was not certain. I could discern no taint, not directly. But this was not the entirety of the situation. For there is such a small kernel of control in each of them that they are utterly oblivious to the threat. I almost missed it in many of them, but by the end of the second round of questioning, I discerned a background presence, an echo in the warp, hiding in their minds. And it was the same echo, the same presence in all of them. As soon as the rigours of the day were spent, I took to the books, and my hunch has now become my only response, for I believe that I have found the truth of the matter. The presence is weak, because it is spread over the entirety of these people. A minuscule slither of corruption hides within them all. Like the tentacles of a larger form, the being hides parts of itself across them all. My judgment is that this is a Rakshasa, and it is very real and very dangerous. Thaddeus now looks to the Farseer. He pins me still with his eyes, but finally, for the first time since I have walked into the room, throughout my entire report, he now blinks languidly, closing his eyes while looking at me, opening them as he turns to Thaddeus, who then nods to him and returns his vision to me. And what is your decided course of action? How will you deal with this situation? If I am correct, then to destroy it will be a challenge, and a costly one. For it is tethered to the physical plane by those it possesses. Hence, for us to destroy it, or banish it at the very least, we must remove its tethers. All of them. Considerations? If I am correct, if this is indeed a Rakshasa, then there is no alternative. We must destroy every single tether. And if I am right, the Eldar now speaks. You are. I wait for anything further. When he does not build on his statement, I push on. Then we must be wary, for as the amount of its tethers reduces, like water being accumulated from small cups into another, those who remain will only grow in taint, hence they will grow in power. As their numbers are reduced, those who remain will be more and more of a challenge, until finally it will have no choice but to manifest fully in the few, or even the one, who is the last to be dealt with. And then, we will be facing a being of immense power. The Farseer now interjects again. So, just so we are clear. Say it. Tell us the fate of the refugees from your world. I demand you to say it out loud. I incline my head to him, but not low. Of course. My judgment is this. In the name of the Holy Emperor, with the power invested in me as his Holy Inquisitor, wittingly or not, I find them all guilty of corruption. And their lives are all forfeit. Every last one of them must die. Thaddeus looks at me with an expression I have never seen. It is not pity. It is not respect. It is something else. I cannot define it. But I am now uncomfortable under his gaze, even more so than the triumphant look from the Eldar. He seems to be relishing this. Thaddeus speaks. I do not know if it is to break the tension, to distract me from the ire of the Xenos, or perhaps to protect me from myself. Despite that we have common cause, I do not like this crystallizing thing in front of me. Especially not now. When? Tonight. We take them while they are at their most groggy, least able to react to our next steps. But know this, as their numbers shrink, we may well be put through the hardest fight of our lives. To which the Eldar snorts derisively, and Thaddeus just gives me a cold stare. The Eldar speaks again. Then tonight, we shall see what we shall see. The last trial awaits you, boy. Indeed, we shall see. Inquisitor Tarquinus, prepare thy panoply of war. We shall purge this taint together. The time comes. I am prepared. We all are. Decked out for a war, we gather. Deverin's squad are holding outside the pens, controlling key passageways and junctions. Thaddeus and his entourage, me with the two Eldar. The solitaire a good span away from we two, but present. We stand on the bridge, watching the chronometer tick down, but all eyes are on the screens as the process begins. I had to at least attempt to reduce or mitigate collateral damage. I am not wrong. I pray I am not. Thus, I go for the easy out from the start. Minimal contact, maximum effect. I order the flooding of the pens with toxins. Nothing they would notice. Not huge gouts of rolling smog. Not a funny smell that robs them of their breath and causes panic. A sublime and subtle concoction. It takes less than an hour to arrange. There is no night nor day aboard a ship, so you'll have to forgive me my previous descriptions. It's just easier to think of shifts as periods of light and darkness. It's how we humans work. Bred into us, when we arose on a solitary orb. Instincts now past their use, but hardwired in nonetheless. Evolution, as some call it, is not fast, it seems. Hence, I wait until they are asleep. The least drama the better. And if I am wrong, then they will go into their final sleep. And, to be frank, outside of my body being willed to rest, I never will again sleep that is. Yet as the gases are leaked into the holding pens, I hold my breath in anticipation. One half of me wants to be wrong, broken with guilt thereafter, but wrong. The other half of me is infected with ego. I do not want to be wrong. Also, the thought of being executed by the Farseer does add a certain frisson of consequence to the situation. I cannot deny. But I clear my mind of all such concerns as I watch the screens like a hawk. And there it is, almost imperceptible to the untrained eye, but some, the old, the weak, the most malnourished, the young, their chests stop moving, they stop breathing. And that is exactly when all hell breaks loose, both figuratively and actually, as the survivors start to wake and explode into activity. Almost as one, they drag themselves to their feet. In unison, they start to scream and bellow. They are furious. But they are not dying. 20% do not rise, but those that do are now livid, berserk. They fling themselves at the cage walls like an avalanche, acting in concert. Some subconscious mastermind grips them, as each of the pens shows exactly the same visions at exactly the same time. Even when some are crushed against those cages, blood pooling at the base of the pens, they do not stop. They break containment in all 6 pens, becoming more ferocious as their numbers dwindle. Relief and disbelief strike me as 2 swords shoved into my breast. I am right, and they are possessed by evil. This is the real deal, and I am ostensibly in charge. For a second, I am transfixed, rooted to the spot, watching the screens. The auto-sentry guns swing into life and bark out. With each volley, 2 or more of the remaining refugees is caused to dance, as shots tear through them, dead before they drop, though that is now becoming a slower process as well. The sentry guns run dry, as the half remaining now shrug off their fire, their skins toughen to warplate, their injuries healing in instants. Arms, legs, limbs regrowing in seconds. They bludgeon their bare hands on the reinforced doors, all across each holding zone, and to the shock of nearly all, they batter them down. Blood-slicked doors are punched in or torn off their hinges, and they are loose. The images assault my senses. I am only snapped from my torpor by a hand being pressed on my shoulder from behind. The hand is gauntleted. It is Thaddeus. Your orders, Inquisitor. His hands slide off me as I swivel to look at the group. We always knew this might happen, so let's get this done. As each of them falls, the power of the demon will be constrained within fewer vessels, but that means each one will be far more powerful than before, as you have seen. So be damned careful, as each victory is a stepping stone to ultimate defeat. We go about this hard and fast. There are no innocents in this room, or on this ship. There can be no room for hesitation, or you and all of us, our cause, will be lost. We do what must be done in the Emperor's name. Thaddeus, Barbon, Ursula, and Devlin, you will advance towards holding pens 1 through 3. I shall take my entourage and the Farseer to deal with pens 4 through 6. Louis will stay behind and use shielding to protect the fundamental systems of this ship. Devlin, order your squad to pull back and hold outside of the bridge and set up the heaviest fire they can. Thaddeus, you and yours, cut off any heading back this way. I shall try to head towards its center. As their numbers come down, they will cluster around a central point to maximize their defense. There, I shall strike. Hopefully you will keep up and be able to assist. Questions? None raised a hand or made any move. So I finished. Let's get this done. Go!" And thus we broke up. The bridge doors opened and Thaddeus just gave me a solemn nod, then took the usual gang to the right. We headed to the left. We jogged for a while, then the solitaire swiveled on his toes and span around to snap something at the Eldar. It was not hidden. It was not in Eldari. He spoke in Gothic. "I trust there will be no accidents." The heart of fire was also dressed for war, and as I looked at him, I could believe that they once owned the galaxy entire. His head helm was high, his stance flawless. He had a spear with him, which emitted a small whine. It looked delicate and durable at the same time, yet it was undeniably a thing of war. I could feel it in my mind, to match the moan that hit my ears. My witch sight showed it bloody and red, glowing like the center of a star. Runes across every inch, more likely scored in at the molecular level, if I was not putting the Eldar on too high a pedestal. And the Farseer bristled. The two did not speak, but their fingers erupted into action. The Farseer began, the solitaire responded. This went on until I could scarce make out the mudras and forms they deployed, and just as swiftly as it had broken out, the Eldar thumb war ended. Both then went into their positions. The solitaire took point, bounding and tumbling as he zipped forwards, as if he were evading a wall of fire already. He was almost impossible to make out in his deathly field, a ball of swirling lights and shadows, dazzling and bemusing all at the same time. And this helped amazingly, for not only did he light the now darkening corridors, but he was an irresistible target, and he clearly knew it. The first to break cover just screamed at him as it erupted from a side hatch. Over 6'5", its arms were distended and had muscles where none should be. Its arms swiveled at the elbows in near any direction, a bunch of hands on short tentacles breaking from just below the forearm. Its face was contorted in a perpetual mad snarl, yet its features were unpleasantly still so human. It lashed its upper limb at my guardian, however. Its size did not match to his otherworldly speed. He rolled under the flailing sweep and brought up his blades. A spectral lambent green sparked across the long curved blades and sizzled as they cut the arms from the beast. Then, in the same fluid movement, he pirouetted and sliced the head from the shoulders. As he landed and glared at his handiwork, another beast turned the corner. As it moved towards us, it gained in speed before our very eyes. I aimed with my new pistol, and 3 bolts rang out. The first 2 were merely pinning placement shots, one right of him, one left. The last hit dead center, and its head punched backwards, and then instantly became a fountain of blood and viscera, as it then staggered and slid across the floor as the bolt round exploded within its skull. 2 down. We move on swiftly, following the sounds of screaming. They had gotten into the crew quarters, had moved down a level, so we hastened, and there he was, at all points just outside the arc of a sword's wing, but otherwise right behind me, watching my every move, my every decision. The Farseer. I take a fraction of a second to slip from the moment. I contact Ursula and wait. I have made errors before. I will make certain she is accepting of this contact. Luckily, she is, and she lets me slide into her mind like quicksilver. I see their party is busy, but fruitful. Devrin is shooting out opponents as they rush on. The autoguns could not pierce the skin of these horrors, but Devrin's weapon is much heavier. Perfectly placed in their weakest points, and, if I know Devrin, he has some of the most lethal bullets in the galaxy. He punches one off its feet with a perfect hit to the solar plexus, finishing it with a headshot as it falls. Barbon shuffles forward, never raising his feet too far from the ground, never committing a maneuver that will see him unable to alter his stance or redirect in a single instant. The blade he is using now is a power sword. Its energies also crackle as he decapitates one, then ducks and twists and lops the legs from another. Then there is a sickening crunch as Ursula twists its head near off, finishing it so Barbon can move on. Thaddeus himself is no slouch either. His shields flare, forming an egg of white energy over him for a second, as a massive claw comes swinging down from a side alley. He steps into the blow, protected by his shields, and brings up his own blade. The thing is cut neatly in two. Now Thaddeus is actually scary strong for his wizened appearance, and the warplate, his power armor, augments that further. But that grok sticker of his is no laughing matter either. I may wield temperance, but that is a master-crafted weapon in his hands of near commensurate worth, it seems. They move in concert as much as our foes. Hard-fought experience, hard gained to boot. Nobody wants a repeat of the event with the Noise Marines, the twins. So they are tight, as coordinated as I have ever seen them. Good. At least they are taking this as seriously on their side. I skip the entirety of my attention back to my own body as they move forward again, as we match their progress. But this is getting worse, as predicted. For each time one of them is felled, the lights flicker, then come back less bright than before, and I am now sweating profusely from my brow, my hair slicked to my head. With each one we destroy, it is only getting hotter in here. Almost imperceptibly, but its accumulated effect will sap us of all strength and vitality, make every swing of sword or bolter a more tasking exertion, making every breath more laboured. My solitaire ally makes good speed, but waits for me to catch up by stopping like a statue. Then, when I am close enough, he sets off again. The next three are a surprise. One jumps out at the solitaire, who bounds over him easily, but two more come from flanking alleys. Mine is fast, but yelps and crawls backwards when I merely raise and ignite temperance. Its attack halted. I cut it to ribbons. Behind me, the Farseer clocks one coming straight towards us from his quarter. He takes two incredibly swift paces, then launches his spear at the foe. It wails as it flies and bursts into lava and flame, illuminating the corridors in a burnished, flickering gold light. For an instant, everything looks touched by gold. But his spear burns through the monster and flies gracefully but forcefully back to his outstretched hand. 3 more down. We continue on. I extend a trail of my mind towards Ursula. She attaches. I see Barbon dive into a group of 6 of them. I want to look away, but it is Barbon, and outnumbered in close. As each of them dies one by one, they get faster, but so does he. Devrin has a line of 3 corpses in front of him, taken down right before his field of view down a corridor. Each headshot ends the advance, yet now each headshot becomes 2 or 3 to bring them down. But he is holding. Thaddeus now has his melter gun in 2 hands, and he's using her to telling effect. Burnt and smashed corpses litter the corridor he covers. Ursula is supporting the others, hurling these creatures back, or at the very least, slowing them down before any get too close. But it's not going to be sustainable. I can feel her mental fatigue already. It is only matched by her physical exhaustion. I ask her to tell Thaddeus we should meet up, and I give coordinates. They can't all keep this up, as the heat is rising, as more of them are terminated. I know I use beast, terminated, callous words. Now is a time for action. I cannot weaken. They are, at this present moment, the enemy. I will mourn them later. For now, they must be stopped. Ursula sends Thaddeus's agreement, and we carve a path towards each other. Or that is how I remember it now, or when regaling new acquaintances I wish to impress. But it's not really the truth, for we had already been fighting for a half hour, and the rush around the corridors in this not inconsiderably sized vessel meant minutes or more between contacts. Sweating in the heat, listening for movement or ambush, the jump scare of their first shrill cry, or the pounding of feet towards us. The flickering lumens, dulling by the death. Every single one of them we killed, the lights got dimmer. Now all was half-light and tinged in red. Blood ran in nearly every corridor. The crew were not all fast enough to evacuate areas. Most were, but not all. Creeping and chasing, punctuated by mere fleeting seconds of unfathomable ferocity. But I had a dancer of Zagora, armed with power blades. I slew by sword any who got past my bolter shot. The Farseer slew anything coming from our rear in precise and efficient ways. Impressive, if we ever had the opportunity to witness them. But we got there. And there he stood, smirking, of course. "Oh, lad, you take us to the most incredible places. For me, it's the ambience. Unmissable. Matilda and I are positively painting the town," beamed Thaddeus, patting his custom melter. "I like to boldly go, you know that." "Indeed." The jocularity ended. "So, where are we in your estimation?" "It's endgame. I've done the math. There is only a core left, and, as predicted, they are contracting to a central point, or they would have hit the bridge by now." I then turned to Devrin. "But we will need it secured. I need you there, Devrin, to make sure we hold it. Even one of these last beings will be a nightmare. So get back up there and take Ursula with you. Keep her safe. She is your last line of defense." Thaddeus eyes me. He knows I am being kind. The oppressive waves of energies, corruption, that are now coming from the center of this hive of scum would possibly override either of them, force them to flee. Something Devrin, or even Ursula, would not live down easily. He winks at me, so no one can see. "Okay, Thaddeus, you sure you don't want to take us through this?" "Want to? Of course. But will I? No chance. Stand on your own 2 feet, Inquisitor Tarquinus." I give him my naughtiest wink. "Myself and my aide will take point. Barbon and Thaddeus to follow. Farseer at the rear. Observing capacity only, of course." All of them just curtly nodded, and then we moved, and we headed for the cargo base and armory. The way would have been lit badly if it were not for the Harlequin. We followed this bouncing and somersaulting will-o'-the-wisp, and the encounters were brief. I would crouch onto one knee and steady my pistol, and then I, Barbon, and Thaddeus would unleash death at them. We got another 4 that way, their numbers rapidly diminishing further. But we knew the next situations would be different. They had thrown the last berserkers at us, you see, to sacrifice them, so those who could control themselves would gain even greater power, the demon using us to cull its herd of the last it considered chaff. We advanced carefully. The corridors to the cargo bay widened and had gangways above, perfect for an ambush. So Barbon pushed forward, and I let him. He is a Astartes. He is built for war. But he was no more deadly than my own escort, not one whit. Barbon now took stock of the bodies of the last we slew at range, and instead reached for his chainsword. We burst into the cargo bay to a vision from one of Thaddeus's textbooks, a graphic one. The heat haze was now obvious. Everyone, even Barbon, sweated. But in the shimmering vapors rising, the reflection of other worlds and images were half ghosted across the mind's eye, a whisper of another way, another future. But amidst the madness of constantly swirling and reconstructed wars and gridded floors, there stood the last of them. Engorged with power, they were malformed and bursting, jets of blood spurting and then dripping from their bodies as their muscles writhed under their skin, which cracked and split. All but one. The petite redhead who stood right there next to the abomination. She was seemingly untouched, unchanged. Thus, the blatant vessel of evil. Thaddeus just about managed to catch up with me as we both looked on. "That's predictable." "Yep. Well, I mean, there's no smoke without fire, so it must have detected something in you. The only way I can respond is to say, hold that thought. And with that, I throw a command at my warrior. Punch me a way through. And he leaps into action and blitzes forward. Like a streak of lightning, he zips towards the enemy and becomes a whirlwind of blades and death when he impacts upon them. Two go down as he speeds past. Another larger one stops him and feels his wrath. The first score of strikes from the Harlequin does not even properly pierce the hide of the newly augmented horror, but the further 40 strikes in mere seconds shows result. The Harlequin steps back, and the thing just falls apart. He had cut so many times, he had broken it apart, slice by slice. Barbon engaged and slaughtered one opponent with precise but savage blade work, his chainsaw digging deep into the foe. But another came up too fast and body-slammed him, then stood atop his chest and pummeled down with his fists. Thaddeus took off the assailant's head with his own blade, but not before Barbon had been struck a rain of blows. Then Thaddeus pulled out Meltilda again, standing over Barbon's body like a faithful hound defending its master. Bit of a turnaround there, but I don't have time to help. I must end this. I pelt towards the obvious centre of the event, the infestation, the girl. She of reeds and drums, the possessed, Santara. She smiles at me as I rush towards her, a look more sultry than any even Ursula has given me. In any other situation, I would have had a hard time trying to avoid the effects. She is striking. And she, or closer to say, the demon, knows it. But that entity has underestimated my resolve. I will not hesitate to strike, even she, the last woman in the universe who knows of my home. I see her eyes narrow as I do not change my pace or expression. And it happens. I am caught in the moment, acting on autopilot. There is no thought, just action. Actions that change my life. Who I am, how I look at myself, what I envisage as my ability. It begins as I feel the sword, its power, its potential. I open myself to it. I do not know why. I feel it all that I have to give, and light erupts from it as never before. I advance, and the blade in my hand has a will of its own. I see it arc in the air, but it does not strike into Santara. It passes only inches from her body. But I witness runes and glyphs crumble in its flight through the air surrounding her. I felt a tiny bit of resistance, like the cutting of an umbilical, subtle but present. Now her eyes widen, as if some part of the glamour has been dispelled, yet her face then contorts into a snarl again, as the entity regains control. She darts out with her fingers, aiming at my unprotected eyes. I twist my head a fraction, as she moves so fast I cannot hope to avoid her sally. Yet, I adjust just enough for her fingers to slam into only my left eye, the metal one. She does a bunny hop backwards and grasps her now broken left hand, as I simply buffet her over with the pommel of my blade. Sprawling as she is, I now stand over her. The Farsi is at my side. He whispers in my mind, Now is the time. Strike! I whip my head around to take stock of the fray. My aide has the last one backed into a corner. Thaddeus has 3 more dead at his feet, as he remains above the only barely conscious Barbon, who is, to my utter surprise, getting to his feet. It is just this one being now. As my aide, the solitaire, carves a mutated mountain of flesh in front of him into cuts of identical sizes, as he unleashes all of his pent-up fury, pain, suffering, and misery, and within another second, there is only Santara now. I look down on her, but my mind is blank. The blade, Temperance, drags more power from me, through me, from my body and the warp along its edge, and it begins to glow brighter and brighter. I reach out with my mind and state back to the Eldar. Farsia, summon your strongest fields, thy strongest shields. And at that, winds pick up around me, covering the room, building in strength at a staggering speed. Soon, All are placing their feet wide to avoid being blown over, and the light continues to grow. My mouth opens, and words erupt unbidden. I speak. The choices given to me are slay, or suffer the unclean to live. Yet now, I say no more, for I choose the third path. I choose the golden path. And with every word I intone, the light shining from the sword Temperance grew brighter and brighter, and expanded out from the blade, engulfing the entire bay. I am a servant of the Emperor, and in his name I proclaim, get ye hence! Crawl back to your realm of shadow and torture and death! I call upon the power of the master of mankind! I am his conduit! I am his cleansing flame! I am his hammer! As I stand there, feeling the power of eternity using my body, pulling yet more energy from me into the blade, the light now becomes so intense I am blinded, as are all around me. A scream resounds around the room as if torn from 1,000 throats, reverberating, ululating at a pitch impossible for a human to create. And then it is over. The light simply ends as I let go of the blade and topple backwards. Blackness. I pass out. My mind returns to activity, and I feel a dainty hand caressing my face. My eyes open, and above me are the blank crystalline orbs of the Eldar Farseer. I am spent. I feel as though I've walked 1,000 miles, lifted a battle barge above my head. I am so tired. Used up. My eyes swim to try to gain focus. Never before have I experienced such force, such power being used, even in the presence of my first master, her, the sensei. The Eldar takes my chin in his hand, and his eyes widen as he intones. Glad you could join us. Now, it is time to finish the job. He forces me to look at the girl, Santara. She is asleep on the floor, but whimpering like a wounded animal. I do not want to. But I touch the warp again. But now it is like smoke in my hands. I will my connection to increase and feel pain erupt behind my good eye. I send my spirit into her mind. I am as careful as I can be, but I leave no stone unturned. And there it is. She is free of the taint. Holy Throne. With temperance, I have cleansed her. I push the Eldar off me and slowly rise, unsteady. I draw myself up, and I look him deep in the eye as Thaddeus edges closer. This is the moment. Everything hangs on the next few seconds, and we all know it. No. You heard me. She is now free of the taint. I will not harm her now, and nor will anyone else present. I, Inquisitor Tarquinus, I forbid it. This is how things are going to go down. I will now receive training from the Heart of Fire. Then, under his guidance, I shall clear her mind of all of this. An advanced technique. Alternatively, I have already failed the test right here with this situation, and you will crush my brain where I stand. The Eldar snorts derisively and waves a hand, and I am then introduced to a whole new level of pain. My nose bleeds. Then I fall forward onto my knees, holding my head. He is indeed crushing my brain, squeezing the life out of me. I cannot stop him. I am too weak. My nose is now a river of blood escaping my brain. Thaddeus is a statue, Baldermort takes a rough and unbalanced half-pace forward, but Thaddeus holds his arm. The Eldar leans into my face and whispers, "Is she worth dying for? Losing all of the power, the cause? Is she worth everything?" Through gritted teeth, his face swinging in front of me, as I endure agony as never before, I spit. "Of course not! She is a single woman, but she is a human. My role, my job, my reason is to defend my people from the unclean, the traitor, the never-born." "The Xenos," offers the Eldar. "As my old master once said, the death of a woman is a tragedy, but the deaths of those thousands and even millions of ancestors that could have come from her genes, a calamity for all of humanity. So, Eldar, I will not yield. Do what you must, but end the charade. Decide." And with that, the Eldar turned on his heel. My pain abruptly ends, but the mere memory of it makes me lose my last meal on the floor. I gasped and placed my hands on the deck to steady myself. The bleeding ceased. The retreating Eldar hurled over his shoulder, "Thaddeus, your charge has passed the measuring." And I swore he winked at the old codger. And Thaddeus gasped at air as well. Finally, it is over. But of course for me, it had just begun. Tomorrow I would begin my training with the chief farseer of craft Annwn, and the exhaustion then claimed me, and I crumpled to the floor again. I woke in the apothecarium, and getting used to this particular scenario, yet I still felt so drained. I gained focus on the one thing of import in the room, the beaming face of Thaddeus. He has sat with me, for Throne only knows how long. And then the words come out. "You tit! Why didn't we just do the burning light and cleansing flame thing with them all together?" he says, with a mischievous twinkle in his eye. I feign anger, of course. "You asshole! To dump that guilt on me, like I knew what was going to happen. You had no idea at all?" "None. Zero." His face drops. He looks at me intently. Did you contact with the divine?" His eyes are wide and open, but glistening. And I see it. He is jealous. God forgive me. I see envy in his eyes. No. I channeled righteous wrath alone. One you helped instill in me, Ma. Thaddeus. He returns to normal and nods sagely. "Well, let's hope there are plenty of light shows to come. We're going to need everyone, I'd wager. Things are going to get rough." "Did you just say get rough?" "Oh, yes, much, much worse. And it's time we discussed why. Or more to put it, whom." To be continued.